A new survey finds 93% of North American manufacturers want closer economic ties between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. That survey was conducted in part by the National Association of Manufacturers, which represents firms in the U.S. Its members could, of course, be impacted by President-elect Trump's push for higher tariffs and also a crackdown on immigration. The group itself represents 79% of the country's largest manufacturing firms. It's been calling for lighter regulations and lower taxes. Jay Timmons is the group's president and CEO. He's at the North American Manufacturing Conference in Ottawa, joining us from Canada this hour. Good to have you here, Jay. That survey really stood out to me. 93% of the members want closer ties, right, for these three North American nations. In some ways, though, that seems to be the opposite of what the president-elect is after. Does that concern you?
Well, I'm not sure it's the opposite of what the president-elect is after. After all, he did negotiate the USMCA 5 years ago or 4 years ago, and that really served as the basis for strengthening the economies of our region. And it also served as the basis for thwarting, frankly, bad trade practices coming out of other areas of the world. What we want to do is we want to strengthen the ties here in North America so that we are more economically strong and fit, but also supporting countries that share our values and, frankly, are our neighbors.
As we look at where things stand, Howard Lutnick, of course, just announced as the president-elect's pick for Commerce Secretary. He has been, as my colleague just noted, an aggressive proponent of the tariffs that Donald Trump is proposing. You had said recently what's needed are trade deals. There are major concerns that if the president-elect follows through with this promise of these severe tariffs, it could lead instead to a trade war.
Well, look, I think you can use, and your previous guest also talked about this, you can use the prospect or the thought of tariffs, if you will, to actually work on negotiating trade agreements. And we're hopeful that that's what the president will do. If tariffs are going to be imposed, we are hopeful that they will be strategically targeted to deal with very specific problems that we're facing. For instance, intellectual property theft or dumping, subsidization. Those are things that threaten manufacturers in the United States and in North America as well.
You mentioned working closer together with neighbors, right? Canada, the U.S., sure. Mexico. Some of those threatened tariffs have been directly aimed at Mexico. Does that concern you specifically?
Well, look, I think Mexico has a little bit of soul searching to do right now, because if you look at the agreement that was signed a few years ago, Mexico has done a few things that actually have not been completely in alignment with the spirit and the letter of that agreement. Now that there's a new administration in Mexico, hopefully they're going to be taking a very hard look at some of the things that the previous administration had chosen to do that I don't think actually were really in line with what the intent of the agreement was. President Sheinbaum, I think, wants to see stronger relationships with the United States. Had an opportunity to talk to some of the ministers in Mexico about a month ago. And I think that they really would like to see a stronger relationship. And that means that they're going to have to ensure that their practices, their economic practices, some of the legislation and the constitutional amendments that have been put in place, there probably needs to be a second look to make sure that they're in compliance with USMCA.
You had told Bloomberg earlier this year that you can't have a conversation without a business owner without it revolving around staffing and the difficulty of finding a skilled workforce. Pew found that 13% of all undocumented immigrant workers are actually working in manufacturing. As we're waiting to see how things play out in terms of Donald Trump's promise for mass deportations, there are concerns about the impact on manufacturing and a number of other industries in this country. How concerning is that to you, given these numbers? Some 13% of workers in manufacturing are, in fact, undocumented immigrants.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Eric. I don't know of any manufacturers that hire undocumented workers. I think that perhaps that is a rare case. But having said that, obviously the issue is, where do we find the workers to be able to grow the manufacturing sector in the United States? Today, we have almost 500,000 unfilled jobs in manufacturing, 500,000, and we're not cranking folks out of the trade schools and the technical colleges that we really need to do. That was something I worked on with the first Trump administration. Ivanka Trump headed up the workforce policy commission for the administration. And our hope is that that will be a focus to train more young people in, get them in the career path for manufacturing jobs in the future.
Jay Timmons, good to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you.